It's been 18 months since I acted on my vengeance. And that time I left my once home in East Texas and moved to Arizona. I cashed in that $1 million check and took Nicholas' advice about leaving. In that time I was saddened to hear that Nicholas and his wife passed away. It broke what little was left of my heart. That was the last connection I had to Gina, and now they join her and Junior in the afterlife. I think of them every day, but as each day goes by, they seem further and further away. After my actions, I know that I will never be able to join them in the afterlife. No, what I did was a sin, beyond any sin. I regret it now, but at the time I enjoyed it. Seeing those that made me suffer, screaming for help and having them feel pain, satisfied my urge and briefly made the pain go away. I keep in touch with my cousin Joe, just in case our crime comes to the light. After 18 months all is good. Joe told me the first 2 months after our crime there was a media circus. Every front page and news outlet ran the story. Where are the pillars of our community? The headlines would read. After 2 months there was a different news cycle. Although the sheriff department still remains on the case to capture whoever hurt one of their own. Good luck, because they will never find them. Those scum of the earth are exactly where they belong. Unfortunately for me, I am exactly where I belong as well, in a small desert town alone. Every day and every night I wish it could end, but it never does. The sun goes down and then it comes up again. I don't know what I want in life. It seems I already lived my best parts. Now I'm cursed to walk what is left of my life in emptiness, loneliness, and full of regret. I wish for the end of it all, but instead the opposite happens. On one fateful night, I decided to go for a walk that night. I lived down a mostly secluded road. Just 2 other houses besides me. There's a good mile or 2 between each house. It was nighttime and a small amount of snow had fallen. I walk down the road, it is dimly lit, and I think of all that has happened through my life. I think of Mom and Dad. I remember how proud they were of me when I graduated high school and when I got my certification. I remember when Mom passed and when Dad spoke to me for the last time. But most of all I think of Gina and Junior. But now when I think of them, I don't see them with smiles on their faces. No, now I see a look of disappointment on their faces. I don't blame them. After all that I have done, what is there for them to be proud of? With shame and regret that I carry, I slowly forget their faces. Even in my dreams, I only see them with their backs to me. Not only do I walk alone down this dimly lit road. Alone, but walk alone in what's left of my life with a stained soul. In one moment of rage, I let my humanity die in the arms of those that hurt me. I may have rid the world of their scum, but sacrificed too much in the process. I only have myself to blame. In these moments of self-pity, I see lights down the road. It's rather unusual to see cars down this road at this time of night. The car lights seem to be swerving as they get closer to me. I stop walking and stand still off to the side of the road. Maybe this will be my end. Getting hit by a car in a dark road. To end my dark, empty life. I see the lights get closer and wait to see what will happen. As the car comes near, it swerves off the road and hits a light pole. I'm frozen at first and then I snap out of it and run to the car. It is wrapped around the light pole and see that all the airbags have been deployed. I reach into my pocket and grab my cell phone, but there is no signal. The front doors are inaccessible, but I am able to open the back door. I get into the back and look to see who is in the car. Just one person is in the car. I call to her, but she is unresponsive. Her head is on the airbag, a slight trickle of blood streams down her face. I look at her right leg and there is an object that has stabbed its way through. At this point, I know it's better not to move her. I get out of the car and run back to my house. I know there I have better signal to call emergency services. I get home and make the call. They tell me they will be there in 20 to 30 minutes. Damn, that's a long time. I grab my first aid kit and some towels and run back to the car. I also get some flares out of my truck and run as fast as I can back to the car. It wasn't too far from the house. When I got back, I set the flares on the road to warn other vehicles and get the attention of the emergency services. After that, I get back into the car. I jump into the front and begin to patch up the spots where she is bleeding. Some cuts are deep and require a lot of gauze and tape to maintain pressure. As I do this, a memory of Gina pops into my head. I remember her showing me the basics of first aid. After we had Junior, she told me it was necessary to learn this should Junior ever get injured. I never had the opportunity to band-aid my son. Here I am providing first aid for some stranger. Thank you, Gina, for showing me these things. The memory fades as I see flashing lights and hear sirens approaching. I get out of the car as the emergency services arrive. A police officer, along with ambulance and a fire truck, arrive. They waste no time as the fire department begins to open up the car. The paramedic get the gurney and stand by. The police officer comes up to me and tells me it will be all right. He tells me that my wife will be okay. My wife? Memories begin to flood my mind from that night of Gina's accident. No, I tell myself as I feel my body become weak. The fire department opened up the car and took her out. The paramedics get her on the gurney and load her up in the ambulance. I didn't realize, but one medic took me by my arm and escorted me to the back of the ambulance. He told me my wife will be okay. My vision became blurred and I could hear ringing in my ears. I began to see Gina laying on that gurney fighting for her life. I wasn't there that night, but I'm here now, and that poor woman isn't my Gina, but I hope she is okay. We arrived at the hospital and they took her into the emergency room. A nurse escorted me to a waiting room. Waiting for me there was a police officer. He asked for my statement, so I told him everything I had witnessed and the first aid I performed. He wrote everything down and thanked me for being a good Samaritan. Not too long after, I see a doctor walk into the room. Although it wasn't him, I swear I saw the doctor that told me Gina and Junior had passed. The same doctor that told me Dad had passed. The ringing in my ear gets louder. I could feel my heart beating faster and my breathing getting heavier. This was a different doctor, and he had something he wanted to tell me. "Hello, sir. I'm glad to tell you that your wife is in stable condition. The first aid you performed helped her out. I'm impressed that you had the foresight to do that. Without that, she would have bled to death. She's okay now and is in recovery," the doctor tells me with a smile on his face. The ringing in my ear stops. My heartbeat feels normal and I breathe easily. She is okay and alive. I helped save her. No, it wasn't me, Gina saved her. Because of Gina, I was able to do that. I felt something inside of me I have not felt in a long time. I can't explain it. My body feels weightless as I walk outside. A life saved. A family spared of heartache and pain. I wish I could have been that lucky back then. But here in the now, a life can go on. That feeling inside of me, is it hope? I don't know, maybe. The doctor comes outside and asks if I want to wait in the room when she wakes up. I told him I will wait out here for now. Should I wait for her to awaken? No, I tell myself. I should be going home. I should go back to that empty and quiet home that I live in. I should be going so I can lay in that lonely bed of regret and sorrow. That is where I belong. The police officer that took my statement is also outside. He comes up to me and asks if I am all right. I tell him yes and ask him for a ride back to my house. He tells me yes, so we get into his car and drives me home. Along the way, he tells me I'm a good person for doing what I did and this world needs more people like me. We arrive at my house, I thank him for the ride, and I go inside. I think about what he told me, being a good person and the world needs people like me. If he only knew what I have done. He would be singing a different tune. Hell, he would arrest me and want me dead for what I did. I may have done a good deed, but it doesn't change what I have done. It doesn't erase the monster that I was. A couple of days had passed since the accident. It was noontime and I was staring outside my back window as I usually do. I look out to the barren empty land that resembles what little of a soul I have left. Then there was a knock at my front door. Highly unusual to have anyone out here. The last time someone knocked on my door was a year ago. A neighbor down the road lost a dog. That was the only time anyone has been here. I go to answer the door and don't know what to expect. Standing in front of me was an elderly man, maybe in his 50s. He introduces himself as Daryl King. He is the father of Sydney King. I tell him hi and then tell him I don't know him or his daughter. He smiles at me and tells me that Sydney is the name of the girl that had the car accident 2 nights ago. I tell him to come in and we have a talk. I'm sorry to disturb you, but I had to stop by and thank you for helping my daughter. If you weren't there, then there's no telling what might have happened. I needed to thank you face to face, Daryl tells me. You're welcome, sir. I'm glad I was in the area and I could help out. I'm curious though, how did you get my address? I asked the police officer you gave the statement to. I told him it was urgent that I see you in person. I hope that this wasn't a problem, Daryl tells me. No. Not a problem at all. Sydney, how is she doing? I ask. She is awake and doing well. She has to rehabilitate her right leg, but she is in good spirit. She also asked if you can come to the hospital and meet her. She too would like to thank you in person, Daryl says. I think about it for a while. I'm not sure if I want to go and meet her. Something inside of me tells me that I should. I tell Daryl I am busy at the moment but will stop by later in the day. He shakes my hand and thanks me again before he leaves. He tells me he looks forward to seeing me again. I close the door and look back out the window. I should go and visit her, just to make sure that she is okay. I wait a couple of hours and then leave my house to the hospital. I feel nervous as I drive there. I haven't had this feeling in a long time. I almost forgot how it felt. I get to the hospital and see the gift shop. I figure I won't go to her room empty-handed. I get a flower arrangement and then go up to her room. I look at the flowers and realize I hadn't bought these in a long time. The last time I bought flowers was the day I'd left my old town. I bought flowers and left them on my parents' grave. I also left some for Gina and Junior as well. I feel myself wanting to cry, but I stop as the elevator door opens to the floor. I didn't think to myself, but I hope her husband or boyfriend doesn't get jealous about me bringing flowers. I walked into the room and there was Daryl that I had met earlier, along with his wife Carol, and sitting up in the hospital bed with Sydney. This was the first time I noticed her face. I recognized her. She is a local personality. She smiles when she sees me. Her smile, it reminds me of how Gina would smile at me, and it brings me warmth and comfort. It surprises me that I still have these feelings hidden inside of me. Daryl stands up and shakes my hand. Carol too stands up and gives me a hug and tells me thank you. The two ends of the room and it is just Sydney and me. She continues to smile and tells me thank you for what I had done. I tell her it's not a problem and I brought her flowers. She tells me she loves them and I jokingly tell her I hope your boyfriend doesn't get mad. She smiles at me and tells me she is single. We talk for a long time and strike up a friendship. For the next 2 months we talk every day. Every so often, I would accompany her to rehabilitation for her leg. In those 2 months I felt at peace with myself. Sydney was a good person and she made me feel good about myself. I haven't had that friendship or feeling since Gina. When me and Sydney would talk, it reminded me of Gina's. At no point in any of our conversations did I bring up my past. I didn't lie to Sydney, I just avoided my past and stayed focused on her. Sydney finished her rehabilitation and was walking good again. She called me up and told me her good news. I was happy for her and glad that nothing severe happened from the accident. Then she asked if I wanted to go out on a date with her. I hesitated at her question. We had been friendly these past few months, but we hadn't gone out anywhere together. I didn't know if I should. I told her we could get dinner. She said yes and sounded excited. I told myself that I was in the friendship there. I didn't want to get too close. That was my intention, but that night I felt myself change. We went to dinner and everything went well. It felt good being there with her. I hadn't felt that way in a long time. After we ate, we left the restaurant and walked down the street. I told myself now is the time I should end this. I was about to tell her, but then she told me something. "Greg, thank you for saving my life. Not just from the car accident, but afterwards as well. Before the accident, I was going through a dark time in my life. I felt like everything was going wrong and I could never find anyone that would be there for me. But now here you are. I don't know if you want to hear this, but I'm falling in love with you," she tells me. I felt lightheaded and felt like there was an explosion in my chest. I haven't heard anyone tell me they love me and what felt like forever. I told her it was just a Nightingale effect. She told me it wasn't that, it was genuine feelings she had for me. It was then that I broke down and started to cry. I told Sydney about my past. I told her about Gina and Junior and how they were taken from me. I told her I could never love again. I told her that, but I didn't know what to expect from her. She gives me a hug and holds me tight. I feel tears running down my face as she holds me. I can feel her warmth and love as she holds me tight in her arms. She releases her hold on me and I look her in the eyes. I stopped crying and don't know what to say to her. "I'm sorry for your loss. I can't imagine what you have gone through or the feelings you felt. I would never want you to forget her and I would never try to replace her. Time can heal all wounds and love can always find its way back. I will be by your side till you feel you can love again. I'm here for you and feel love for you," Sydney tells me with tears running down her face. I'm completely lost for words and feel myself getting light. I hug her and begin to cry again. I feel alive inside. I can feel emotion inside. I had already forgotten how this felt. I stopped hugging her. As we pull away from each other, I give her a kiss on her lips. I pull myself back and she smiles at me. Is it possible for me to love again? Should I love someone else? I don't have the answers to these questions. But I feel something good inside of me. Something I haven't felt since I was with Gina. Maybe it was wrong of me to feel this way. I shouldn't feel this way. What about Gina? I still have love for her. Nicholas said for me to move on, but how and why? I stay looking at Sydney and see the similarities she has to Gina. She is a kind person. She makes me laugh and makes me feel good about myself. She is caring and supportive. She is strong and determined. Sydney touches my face and asks me if I'm all right. I tell her I don't know how to feel. She tells me it is okay. We stayed quiet for a while, but she held my hand in hers. We decided to end the night and talk tomorrow. I stayed awake for most of the night thinking of Gina and Sydney. What should I do next? The next day came around and Sydney called me. She told me she was sorry if I felt forced into anything. She told me she has strong feelings for me and she doesn't want to hurt me. I told her that I felt something for her, I just needed to take it slow. She told me to take my time. We would go out on dates every weekend for the next month. Every date ended with a hug and a kiss. We talked every day. I started to feel like myself once again. I felt I could be in a relationship with Sydney. She was everything I wanted, just like Gina. I find myself comparing them a lot and shouldn't. They may seem the same, but they are two different people. I tell Sydney on one of our dates that I love her. I want us to be together, but still want to take it slow. She smiled and was happy. She gave me a hug and a kiss. She tells me she wanted to introduce me to her colleagues. I tell her I would like that. On a Saturday night, she took me to her colleague's house. Although it was more like a mansion. Here I would meet her closest friends and business partners. They seemed like powerful people. A group of people I would have never met without Sydney. I would soon come to regret meeting these people.
Thank you for stopping by and listening. Please like, share and subscribe. Also please leave a comment. Once again thank you and we'll see you next week.